back. He's joining us today. Our good buddy, Zack Nagy. What's going on, bud? How are we doing tonight?
How's it going, dude? Let's do it.
So we do have a lot to discuss. So let me first start here. I know, Zack, that I'll see you 2 weeks from today, I believe, out there at LSU Ops, because we'll go to our first practice. But I still got to ask you a baseball question, even though we're midway through July. You reported that you had spoke to Luke Holman, who will be here tomorrow. Can you dive into a little bit of that? You did last week, but he did confirm with you, if I'm not mistaken, that he will be in Baton Rouge tomorrow, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I talked to Luke, I believe it was maybe Friday night. Talked for a pretty long time just about his recruitment. It was one of the first big updates he's given since he kind of entered the portal. He was doing Team USA baseball. You and I spoke about that last week as well. And now he's kind of hitting the ground running with his recruiting process. We both kind of know. I reported that he saw Tennessee on Monday. He's at Mississippi State today. And then tomorrow he'll be in Baton Rouge. He might take a day or two to kind of like take things in and then potentially hit Auburn. He has every single SEC school in his ear. There's no one's slowing down. Everybody's pushing. He has a slew of programs. Even Wes Johnson at Georgia's hitting him up. It's not slowing down. His recruiting process is hot. But more importantly, he'll be in Baton Rouge tomorrow. Talk to Jay Johnson. Talk to Nate Yeske, the new pitching coach. Check out the Marucci facility. Just check out everything that he can. And, continue going through the process before ultimately making a decision. He told me that his decision date is by the end of July. So going into August, he wants to know where he'll be going to school. And it'll be interesting down the stretch. Mississippi State's making their heavy push. He went and saw Tennessee first. So those are his probably, his final three schools, and we'll work from there. But LSU's gonna turn the heat up on him. Jay Johnson's gonna put his foot on the gas.
So let me just tell you what I heard when you said that. You ready?
I'm excited to see what you got to say after this.
I heard Jay Johnson's getting the last crack at this. That's what I heard.
In a perfect world, he hits Baton Rouge tomorrow, checks out everything that they have to offer. In a perfect world, he shuts it down after that.
That's what I heard.
In a perfect world, that's what would happen. A lot of guys are putting their foot on the gas for him. He's as coveted as they come. It's him and Braden Montgomery. Those are your two top guys. So, could Mississippi State go 2 for 2? And that would be absolutely outrageous. But you're gonna see LSU turn up the heat and hopefully try to get him to shut things down, tomorrow. But it's gonna be tough. He said he wanted to go try to check out Auburn. So by no means is it his last visit, but could it be? Could be, man. Could be.
Portal King.
It's what it is. At this point, I'm ready to lock that in.
All right, I love it. Zack Nagy, join us. We'll let you know where you can catch all of his content. So I'm gonna kind of Zack, I asked you this last week, but I kind of want to expound on it a little bit. Obviously, Brian Kelly was at SC Media Days. I guess, what was the biggest things that you took away from him on Monday?
I love the first question, because if you remember last week when you and I spoke, you said, what would I ask if I was there? And I said, first thing I want to know is the secondary. What was the first question you got asked?
He talked about the holes in secondary, correct.
That was the one thing that I really wanted to hear what he had to say about, just because – it's a fresh-faced group, new transfers. Talked about it last week. Just it's a group that has some work that needs to be done. Aside from that, I loved how he was kind of not comparing to Alabama and Georgia, but he's super transparent. And it's really nice to have like a CEO-type figure in front of a crowd and, representing himself as a professional. And he simply just talked about, look, we're trying to do sustained greatness, and we want to be like Alabama and Georgia. And it's going to take time to get there, but he feels like they're on the trajectory of getting to that point. That was one of my main takeaways, just listening to him talk about Alabama and Georgia and wanting to get to that point. Aside from the secondary and closing the gap on Alabama and Georgia, I loved everything that he had to say about Jaden Daniels. He was asked about it by Brooks Austin, one of our guys over on our network, and he went on and on about it. And he simply said that, they knew what he was, a football player, like the football player aspect of things, but learning about how he is as a player in order to understand his tendencies was something that as the season went on, they started to understand more and more. And you saw him become more successful as the season went on. So one of my things was him just really talking about the developmental aspect things of Jaden Daniels and how he can kind of turn it up a notch and, reach that next level this season.
One thing to kind of talk about the holes that he mentioned, because we're going to talk about the secondary, and then we'll get to a lot of the positives to take away from this. Zach, I did a pretty lengthy tutorial, if you will, maybe not tutorial, but segment about third down. I think that the 3 games you lost, not named Tennessee, the other 3 that LSU lost last year is because what they did defensively on third down.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Kelly made a big emphasis on that. Now, I'm not trying to turn the heat up on Matt House, but you kind of could walk away with that in the argument of saying, like, hey, brother, you better turn up the heat on third down or else. Am I crazy to think that he kind of called Matt House out a little bit about what happened on third down last year?
Hell no. I completely agree with that. Just because this team couldn't get off the field on third down, whether it was short, long, it didn't matter. Teams were punching us in the gut on third down and keeping their drives alive. And in turn, the defense would be exhausted by the fourth quarter. It killed momentum in every aspect of the game. So, no, that's not a crazy thought at all. And, yeah, it's something that Matt House is going to have to focus on come fall camp. And it's going to be something that's in my mind when I'm watching this Florida State game in Orlando in September.
Massively, because you can't do what you did with them last year on third down. You're going to get beat again. So I do agree with that. I think Florida State's just a really good team. He was asked about his offense a lot, and every time that he was asked about his offense, so in the 6 times that we really got to listen and hear from Brian Kelly, in all 6, when he was asked about his offense, he picked out every single position group, right? Our buddy Chris Phillips over at Spurs Up asked him about running back and Logan Diggs. He said about his offensive line, about like, hey, man, I didn't know who my starting 5 was going to be last year. Talked about Malik Neighbors and the receiving core, Brian Thomas. Obviously talked about his quarterback, Jane Daniels. You know what he believes and thinks about him for bringing him to SEC Media Days and obviously confirming that he will be the starter. Of everything that Brian Kelly talked about offensively, he didn't really talk about a lot of holes, really. What was the biggest thing that you heard from Brian Kelly on the offensive side of the ball?
One thing was what he said before he hopped on stage, and that was about John Emery, potentially being cleared to come back. Obviously, that wasn't something that he said on the stage in front of the crowd, but potentially getting John Emery cleared and back on the team is something that really stuck out to me, just because that running back group is just absolutely loaded. And then to add him back potentially into the mix, emphasis on the word potentially, would be huge for this program moving forward. But something that I'd love to hear him talk about is the wide receiver unit. Malik Neighbors is a top 5 wide receiver in the 2024 draft. I heard you talking about it a minute ago as well. And I saw the Athletics mock draft as well today. And, you have Marvin Harrison up there, and then you got, Malik Neighbors right there below him. So your receiving core is absolutely just astounding. And it's something that Brian Kelly's harped on, quite a few times. So to hear him talk highly about that group, talk highly about Jaden Daniels' growth, I mean, I feel like it's just a recipe for success. You're returning so much talent. And he harped on that. You're bringing so much returning experience back on this offense. The sky's the limit. Just like I said last week, it's just a complete reiteration of what I said last week.
It is interesting that, Zach, I asked you if it's playoff or bust. I think Brian Kelly has tried to talk about how talented he is with going through expectations and saying, listen, man, this is college football now, and I inherited something really bad. But it gets back to the point in the question that I asked you last week that I kind of want to dive into a little bit more. I mean, I don't know if it's a bust if they miss, because I think some bad things, injuries, how do things happen? But, man, Zach, it's really hard for me. It's the first time that I've gone into the season and felt to myself, even in 19, where I'm like, man, LSU might be the best team in the West, and I don't think that's a hot take. It makes me nervous a little bit. I don't know how you feel, but I feel nervous when I say that out loud.
And I can agree with that in a way because, obviously going into any situation with no expectations, it kind of makes it just a clear-cut, scenario, just walking into something great, just like last year was. You're not going into this year, you're not the underdog anymore. And Brian Kelly said that, we're contenders now, and we believe that we can reach that next step. And to what you were saying before, if they don't reach the playoffs, is that not like is it championship or bust? I still think so, solely because that's that next step after the SEC championship game. You win that, you're there. And you already reached that point in year one. Sure, expectations are high, but I certainly believe that in order to continue elevating this program to new heights in every single aspect, you win another game and you reach the college football playoff. And I think that's just, it is what it is at this point.
what did you take of anything else from SEC Media Days? I know Jimbo didn't confirm if he would or wouldn't call plays. You had Kirby Smart. What did you take from the rest of SEC Media Days?
That I love Zach Arnett.
Oh, I do too, man.
But I love Zach Arnett. I think Mississippi State's in great hands after the tragedy. You know, horrible situation that's happening up in Starkville last season. But I think you have a great person coming in and taking over the program now. I think he's an absolute dog. I think he's a unit. And I think he's going to be able to keep that trajectory of the program going upward. I don't think they're going to stall or have anything in that regard. I think you, Will Rogers, you have a great quarterback. So I think he's just going to be able to continue to, you know, keep going up the ladder, keep going up a couple of steps. Obviously, you know, Mississippi State, it's a work in progress from that program as a whole, even when Mike Leach was there. So I think having him in the fold now is just an absolute great situation. That was a great takeaway of mine. I certainly feel like Mississippi State's in good hands, and I'm excited to see what they can do this upcoming season.
Speaking about Jimbo.
That was something that – I see your face, dude. I know. It was something that I just –
I mean, it was bad, man. Zach.
He has no filter. He kind of just says what it is and doesn't really think about it. He looked very unprepared walking up to that podium. And again, that's why I'm super grateful for Brian Kelly kind of being a CEO-type figure for LSU, because it just makes me feel just always prepared in any situation. He's never going to F up in a horrible way. He took the recruiting jokes on the chin. He didn't say anything bad in that regard. So I was kind of embarrassed for Jimbo. I don't hate Jimbo. I don't hate Texas A&M, but it was definitely one of the more questionable coaches going up to the podium. I know. I see your face. Just say it. Say what you're going to say.
I didn't say anything.
I'm waiting for you to say it. I said my 2 cents.
Have you ever seen the movie The Anchorman?
Wow.
You remember when he says, I don't believe you?
Yes.
I don't believe you. I think you do hate Texas A&M.
I don't like Texas A&M. I'm just but I can't say this in front of no, I don't like Texas A&M. Are you kidding me? Why would I?
Yeah, I feel you. I just think for me, it's the lack that he won't commit to saying that Bobby Petrino's calling plays.
Yeah, that was a huge takeaway for me as well.
You know, and so I get to a point where I'm like, well, number one, how did we lose to him last year? Okay, that's number one. I mean, I know how you lost to him, but I kind of honestly felt, this is so horrible, I kind of felt like how other school fan bases felt when Les Miles used to beat them. Like, how did that idiot beat us?
Pull it off, yeah.
You know, like, how did that happen? That's how I felt. Like, man, is this dude about to have a Les Miles type of run, toss, dive, and down their throats and 22 personnel? Like, what are we doing?
I agree. I don't know how we know how it happened last year, but I just can't believe that it happened last year is what I'm trying to say. So Jimbo was certainly a character up on the podium yesterday. I'll leave it at that.
Zach Arnett. See, you said Zach Arnett earlier, so I almost called you Zach Arnett. You know, kind of got the buzz cut hair, you know, like, okay, no, y'all look nothing alike. All right, Zack Nagy is joining us. What do you expect from Saban tomorrow? Do you think he names the quarterback? I do not, obviously, but what do you think you get from Saban tomorrow, if anything?
I think you get your clear cut, typical Nick Saban type guy. No, I don't think he'll name a starting quarterback. I think that would be absolutely insane if he did. I think it's going to be another thing where it just segues into fall camp and work from there. It's going to be a really important next couple of weeks for the Crimson Tide. Really intrigued with this roster. I think it's going to be a big time shake back year for Alabama. I think they're going to be a pretty scary program once again. Last year was a relative down year for them, obviously. I think they're going to shake back in a pretty big way this upcoming season. Nick Saban's going to step on the podium, answer questions like a complete OG, like he always does. You don't know. You know what you're getting from Nick Saban every time he's speaking in front of the media. So I expect it to be the exact same situation once again once he goes to SC Media Days again for the millionth time.
I hear you. Last one for you. Do you know officially by chance the day that LSU starts fall camp?
I think it's August 2nd, August 3rd, one of those two. Whichever one. Yeah, I think it's August 2nd or 3rd. I have to double check.
So I ask this to everybody that, obviously goes to practices. I do not go to all of them because, look, I'm not going to go watch dudes stretch. I'm just just not going to do it. Zack Nagy, day one, bonnet, opens the gate, you run to one position group, you want to see him. I know we talked about DB, but other than DB, where is Zack going?
I'm going to check out that running back room. I'm going to check out that running back group. I want to see how Logan Diggs is looking. He looks like he put on a decent amount of size. Really intrigued to see what he looks like from a physical stature standpoint. He's obviously an incredible back, starting caliber guy, could be your starter. Because during spring camp, there were just no running backs. You were working with walk-ons. You were just completely injured. Fresh early enrollee Trey Holly was, manning the ship over there for the most part.
Right.
So I'm running over to that corner, in that back right corner. I'm going to check out those running backs, see what I'm getting from Logan Diggs, see how Armani Goodwin's looking a little bit. I want to see the early enrollees. Caleb Jackson's now on campus now, absolute speedster. I know you're high on him too, so I love that because I am as well. So I want to see how that running back group looks. Other than that, I'm going to walk over there, check out the secondary, see what we're working with over there. But running back group is something that I'm going to be, putting a lot of notes on, taking a good amount of video with, and I'm going to be checking that out in a big way.
Zack Nagy joined us, LSU Country.